Okay, so I've got my double screens, and I've got one over here, and had to get that adjusted. So my name is Laura Hamilton. I am the area HR administrator for the Health Sciences Spokane campus. And one of the things that a lot of our departments are experiencing is this very new dynamic of needing to have the skills and different ideas of how to onboard employees while we're all working remotely. It's definitely a different dynamic than anything our institution has been faced with before. And so there are some considerations that we need to make as we are bringing on new employees. It's a new normal. Team members do need to have that same opportunity really to familiarize themselves with the team's daily routines, with the values and mission of the team, who they can get information from, and really providing the best means of acquiring information, given that still the vast majority of the institution is working remotely. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult than if they were in the office. We're under a interesting time when we need to make sure that we have cell phone numbers, or we have ways to contact different individuals who we need to connect new employees with. So it is important that new staff and faculty do get an introduction to the department norms, and that maybe we're reviewing that a little bit more frequently and with a higher intensity than we normally would, and that they have opportunities to somehow socially interact with the team. One of the things that I've really appreciated about the human resources team is we have scheduled these check-ins that we do every so often, and we try to make it fun. It's important that we're sharing great information with each other, but there's a theme to each of them, and so we have a few minutes that we get to laugh with each other and share the ups and the downs of what's happening in each of our areas. And so opportunities like that where we can allow people to socially interact is definitely something to think about. The first 90 days of an employee's life cycle can impact, as they've done research, it can impact the success and the longevity of that individual with the organization. And so if we fail in that first 90-day experiment and experience, sometimes we'll have really fantastic employees who will already start to think about their next opportunity. So during the recruitment, it is important because we're doing these interviews via Zoom for the most part. So it is important that we're providing really good information about the role and the expectations. It is even more critical to do that because it is going to be a virtual environment, and our candidates need to be able to identify if that is work that they can successfully do from a remote location. The goal is definitely to establish those proper expectations for the potential employee. We don't want to end up in a dynamic where they're doing a level of work that they really don't have the ability to do successfully from home. And can they be successful in the virtual environment that your department currently has set up? And the dynamics in each of those virtual environments I've found is a bit different. Each department, each college is setting up their structures a little bit differently. And so introducing those during the recruitment process so that there is a full knowledge of information as they're making decisions. Planning for the first week is going to be really critical and important. So making sure that if there is any computer equipment that needs to be ordered, sometimes I have found as we've onboarded new employees over the last 6 months, equipment that normally would take 1 to 2 weeks to get in is taking a lot longer. And so really planning ahead of time for any equipment needs that the new team member might have, and making sure that it is on hand for their first day. It's going to be very difficult, especially in today's environment, without the proper equipment for people to be able to onboard timely if we haven't ordered that hardware and software ahead of time. The team will be taking on new members. Really, that whole team should actively be a part of the onboarding process, not just the supervisor and the employee. So ideally, members of the team that are going to interact with this individual will have taken part in some part of the recruitment process and be familiar with the candidate. Creating an introductory program that helps the employee to understand the critical aspects of the job. And again, and you're going to hear me reiterate this again and again, talking about what are the department's values and the norms. Do you have ground rules that your team has set up in how you're interacting with each other in this virtual environment? Do you have norms of how some process flows go that's going to help this individual to be more successful in their position? Is there an individual who is the person of many hats, who is the repository of information for the department that you can connect the new employee with to make sure they have that as a resource? Making sure, especially because a lot of our candidates don't come from state-funded educational institutions, that we're thinking about how we can introduce new employees to those regulatory requirements that we have as a state-funded institution. Make sure that is a part of that onboarding process. People who haven't come from a state system before, and specifically one in Washington, it's going to be very foreign to them. And so making sure they have links to the business policy and procedure manual, the executive policy, the WACs, different information like that that really can inform how they do their work and why we have a certain set of rules that might seem unusual to individuals who come from private industry or even from a state institution in another state, which I did. And as I came to Washington, they said, it's going to take you a while to get used to all the rules. And I thought, oh, I'll be good. It can't be that different. It is different. And so making sure individuals have access to that information is really important. Preparing ahead of time a contact sheet for different key team members and resources that those team members will help provide. Just a one sheet that has, hey, for IT help, this is who you go to. If you have any questions with HR, this is who your consultant is. Scheduling a meet and greet with those key contacts where everybody can interact together in a virtual meeting can be really helpful and important as well to make sure that people are feeling connected. You want to think about that before your employee's first week, because a lot of people have a good number of Zoom meetings that they're participating in. And so you want to make sure to schedule it in so that all of those key individuals can be a part of that, that meet and greet process. So please do take the time to send an email to your new hire with this warm welcome and greeting as they're joining WSU. Include in that, before they start, a reminder that they do need to have their I-9 appointment. That does need to be done in person still, because we do have part of our institution that is essential and is not working remotely. The I-9 does have to be done in person. It cannot be done virtually. And are there other forms that your department needs to have the employees sign to get access to systems, or different things that you've got to have that hard copy that you can have filled out at that I-9 appointment? What office supplies? So outside of the hardware and the software that you should have thought through and purchased and had underway a little bit sooner than this, but what office supplies might they need? Is there, papers and pens and different resources that they're going to need to do their work that you can put into a little bit of a welcome on board care package that you provide them when they come in to do their I-9? My first day at WSU, one of the things that I was really pleasantly surprised by, and I love, and it's something that as I work with managers, I recommend that they do, is some sort of little welcome treat for employees. So on my first day, the team that I work with actually purchased a succulent that I still have. It's up in my kitchen. And it's something as I look at it and I think about it, I always have those warm feelings of just that welcome that I was greeted with as I joined the institution. So is there something, a mug, a favorite candy bar, something fun that can help the new team member to feel connected and valued as a new member of the team that you can include in that package of office supplies, so that they feel that really warm Coug welcome to the institution. Some of my search committees that I've worked with, they'll actually ask as a part of the search process about favorite candy bars and sodas and things like that. And then they do include that in the onboarding process for the new employee, some of the favorites as a part of that welcome package. Where normally we would give it to them on their first day, really at this point, probably the best time for them to receive that is when they are on campus for their I-9 appointment. That way we're not asking them to come for an extra trip to campus unless it's necessary. Is there a team member that you can identify outside of the direct supervisor that could do some additional check-ins and onboarding with the new team member? So is there somebody who's going to be interacting with this individual regularly enough that it makes sense to have them as a pretty significant part of that onboarding process? Mentors right now, while we are working remotely, are even more important than they are when we're in the office environment. Normally, as we engage in work throughout the day, we have different people who are interacting with us, and we have those little moments of socialization that makes us feel connected as a team. We don't have that necessarily right now. And so having somebody who can mentor and really walk alongside our new team members can be even more critical in the current environment. Send a note out to the whole team and let them know the new employee is starting. Invite them to warmly welcome their new colleague during their first week, because again, it can seem to be a pretty disconnected time for individuals. Schedule a welcome message from the department head on their first day. So this is the first week. During the first week, you want to make sure that they are getting that welcome email from the department head. Hold, again, that virtual meeting that hopefully you've set up ahead of time with the whole team, but then set up a separate meeting where you can walk the new team member through the resources page on the HRS website. There is a whole page for new employees of the organization. But I would make sure, normally we would sit next to an employee and walk them through all of the steps and answer any questions they have. Because of some of the resources that we have through Zoom, we can still do that with new employees. We just do it through the virtual environment. So share your screen, walk through with them step by step different information that they may need to pay especially close attention to. Putting an orientation packet together that you can email to them that has some little indicators of things that you'll be going through in their first week can be really helpful, because it gives you something to point back to and to make sure that if there are questions, there's somewhere to document those, and then you can go back to answer those as you're doing your check-ins. Gather some details about the new hire, about their expertise and their experience that you can share with the department along with a photo of the new employee. Ask the staff as they receive that email to share an interesting fact about themselves along with a photo, so the new employee can put a name with a face. It may be a little while before we're interacting in a normal traditional office environment again, and so familiarizing them with the individuals that they're working alongside in this remote environment is certainly important, so that we're not having to re-onboard everybody when we're back on campus. Identifying additional members of the team who can do some quick check-ins throughout the day during that first week can really help a new team member to feel connected. And identifying those team members, I really, again, would look for individuals who are going to be doing work pretty regularly with this new employee, that they can help to make the connection of how they'll be working together moving forward. And then making sure that if there are any issues with the training tools that we use to collaborate, that those are being addressed as quickly as possible. So is there anything that you need to do to provide additional training on Teams, on Zoom, on different tools that your department may use during this remote work environment? I actually learned a new feature with Zoom that I actually absolutely love, that if you hover over your name, you get the 3 little dots. You can click on that and you can actually hide your own picture, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little exhausted of looking at myself. And so while all of you can see me, right now I can't see me, which makes me much more confident in doing some of these presentations and these meetings, because it does get a little bit fatiguing to be looking at ourselves all day. So during the second week, you're going to want to go back over all of that onboarding information from week 1. If there are any of the areas where there are questions, you need to review the information with your new employee again, where we're not interacting with them in person one-on-one. They're going to feel a little bit left to their own devices to figure some of this out. So making sure that we're stepping in and reiterating how confusing some of this can be, and that we're there to help and support them with these onboarding processes and all of the resources that are available through the university system. Check in to learn what the new team members learned in their first week. Review again the department goals and the impact of their role on those department goals. And then talk about a plan to put those one-year goals in place with them and start having them think about what type of goals, given the information they learned in week 1, they would want to include as a part of their first year experience with the institution. Setting up meetings with other department members within your unit. So not just your own little department, but the broader unit. Are there other individuals that you need to set up virtual sessions with? And invite colleagues from other units outside of yours. So sometimes we have positions where folks will be working with payroll quite a bit. They might be working with student affairs quite a bit. So are there individuals from departments in outside units that we can start to set up connections and meetings for our new team member? And then identify any barriers that our employees may be experiencing that you can help to resolve. Because a lot of us have worked in the system for a while, it's easy to forget how difficult it can be to navigate during that first 90 days. Who to touch base with on different things. And so we can be that expertise and that resource for our new employees. And the more we're asking them those questions and making it comfortable to bring up those areas where they might be having difficulties, the more that they're going to have that resource and feel free to speak up. During that first 30 days, so when you hit that 30-day mark, again, you're going to want to request additional feedback on areas that they want to have additional conversation and training. There is a ton of training that our training and development department has put together and made available through Skillsoft. So making sure that they know what those resources are and maybe helping them to identify some of the most important trainings that impact their role. Again, identifying at the 30 days any barriers that they're experiencing that you can help to resolve. Checking in with team members who, if they have a mentor or someone who's serving as a buddy, for them, that we're checking in with them to say, hey, are there areas that you've identified as you've worked with this new employee that we need to provide some additional support? Involving that team member in the short-term projects can be really big in helping a new employee to feel a sense of accomplishment, especially in this remote work environment. So if there is some short-term project that's applicable to their role, that they can have that successful engagement within their first 30 days, try to find one of those that they really can take a significant part in, but nothing too big, because there's likely to be some additional training opportunities throughout that project. So as they've had a little bit more time to become familiar with the role, you can start virtual introductions with departments outside of your unit. So expanding again, maybe individuals that they'll interact with on occasion, but not on a regular basis, because that should be a little bit earlier. But how do we continue to expand their interactions with other departments? The science has shown that 20% of turnover that happens with different organizations occurs right around that 45-day mark. So it is important at that 30 days that we're really assessing any barriers that are happening so we can address those before we're getting to that critical 45-day mark with our new hires. So making sure that we're taking the time to assess our team members' understanding of their role and address any barriers that we haven't yet been able to resolve for them. And then of course, we're at the 90 days. So making sure that we are giving our team members feedback and coaching on any concerns that we might have so that we can provide additional information early on in the experience. I find sometimes people will want to wait until like a traditional 6-month review time to really engage in those conversations. But the early in the employee life cycle that we can start to address some of the areas that they could do things a little bit differently to be more efficient or to engage more effectively is definitely better than holding off. And it can feel more friendly than punitive. Asking the team member how you, as their supervisor, can help them to be successful in their role. Really giving them the opportunity for airtime and to give some critical information back to us on some process improvement that may need to take place. Are there other team members who have ideas for improvement that have been triggered by this new individual joining the team and ideas that they've been able to generate? And then this is the time to make sure that you are solidifying and setting those short-term and long-term goals for their first year of employment. And you would want to be reviewing those with the employee as you're meeting together on a weekly basis. Again, I don't recommend that we're only meeting with employees once a year during their annual review to discuss their performance. That should be a part of what we're doing on a regular basis with all of our employees that we work with. So hopefully those are some helpful ideas to think about how we onboard individuals in this remote environment that we're in that I think is certainly different than what most of us have dealt with throughout our career. If you have any questions or would like copies of any of the information, don't hesitate to reach out. And I believe the next Could Connect will be on Tuesday. Don't forget to log in to Smart Health and go ahead and log your participation today because it does count towards points for your Smart Health app.